Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, Objectively Dan, and dancing in the background there is
Quite
the one and only. I love it. Thank you, Bart. This is Bart Campolo, everybody. I am super excited to have Bart on. Man, you have no idea. This is a dream come true. I have been following Bart and his work for a long time now. He is a humanist chaplain. He is the author of the book Why I Left and Why I Stayed, right? And a Netflix documentary about that as well. You can introduce yourself more if you want, Bart, but if you don't know Bart, you need to know Bart. He's also the host of the Humanize Me podcast. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff. He's in Cincinnati right now speaking at American Atheists. He's just all over the place. What's going on, Bart?
I'm actually, Dan, I'm in Cincinnati because I live here.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah,
it's my town.
Yeah.
And so they came to me.
Yeah, that must be nice. That's convenient, huh?
Yeah. So it is. Now, what's weird is do I look okay to you on the screen?
You look great right now. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. If I look good to you, that's great.
You look fantastic.
For a minute there, it was very fuzzy.
Yeah. So our iTunes and Spotify and other listeners can't see us now, but those of you who are watching live on YouTube, this is Live with Bart Campolo. You guys have seen this show before. This is Truth Wanted. We talk about what people believe and why. So if you want to talk to me and Bart right now, live on the screen, there's a number there at the bottom. Our lines are open, folks. Come talk to Bart. Bart's a cool guy. So Bart, I first met you last year. We were at Secular Student Alliance Conference. And gosh, I had a lot going on at the time.
You have a lot going on.
I had a lot going on at the time. I don't want to get into too much into my personal life, at least not right here on this segment, because this is about you. This isn't about me. But
so on this show, do you not talk about your personal life? Is it are you this objective but also distant person who interviews others but reveals nothing of himself?
I think I use the name Objectively Dan kind of in tongue in cheek. It doesn't really mean anything. I don't think I'm objective at all. If anything,
I think subjectively Dan.
I'm subjectively Objectively Dan, right? That's right. Kind of how I think of it. But no, I think I kind of started this show to kind of get the perspectives of other people. It's not just about me. I think if it was a show just about me talking all the time, I think that would get boring real fast. I think the more people that are on here, the better. But yes, I think most people who watch the show know a little bit about me and my story, a little bit of how I ended up here, and that whole situation, talking with Anthony Magnabosco and doing street epistemology and stuff. And we met at a time where I was first coming out to my parents about this. And we talked about this one-on-one. I was they found out that I was, they didn't realize I was at the Secular Student Alliance conference. I had kind of told them I was on a trip somewhere else, and they found my videos online and stuff, and they were texting me about this, and this was all right before I had to do a presentation.
They were just figuring out all this stuff that was going on in your life.
Yeah, and it was really, really intense. And I had this one-on-one, I remember this so vividly. We were sitting outside of the campus there, and it was you, me, and a couple other people that were at the conference, and we were just sitting out in the grass, and we were just talking about life and talking about how to deal with this situation. And at that moment, I never felt more lost. It was I suddenly I was away from my family. I was in a completely other city with a bunch of people that I knew kind of well, but not as well as I could have, talking about this atheism thing, this thing that was really new to me at the time. And it's what do I do now? How do I talk to my family and talk to the people in my life that I suddenly
far away? It's how do you talk to your mom?
Right.
That becomes the issue. And it's so interesting because, I know you want me to sort of say a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, in that moment, you got to experience who I am and what I do, because who I am is a guy who for 30 years was an evangelical Christian minister, inner city missionary, guy who was building community, and who gradually, became more committed to loving relationships and community building and making a difference in the world, and who gradually lost his ability to believe in any kind of supernatural power.
Mhm.
And so, I'm one of those people who's like a post-Christian.
Yeah.
But in the Christian world, I was this pastoral caregiver, this guy who took care of people who were struggling. And in many ways, when I came out of Christianity and I couldn't believe the narrative anymore, I was like, okay, I no longer can believe in God, but I still want to pursue love and truth and justice and goodness. Where's the secular community where I'm gonna like pursue goodness as a way of life, pursue love as a way of life? And I kind of had a hard time finding it.
Mhm.
I found a lot of people who wanted to fight for the separation of church and state, or who wanted to debate Christians on the ridiculousness of their beliefs. But I didn't find a lot of people that wanted to build a kind of a warm and loving community.
Right.
And so I ended up becoming a humanist chaplain on a college campus, where I was working with college students, not trying to convince them all not to believe in God, but taking the ones that didn't believe in God and trying to convince them that love was a really valuable way of life and a sort of a secularly rational, good choice way of life. And what ends up happening, Dan, is that a lot of the young people that I work with, one of their big issues is, how do I relate to my believing parents?
Mhm.
It is, how do I let them know that I can't buy into their narrative, but in many cases I still share their values?
Yeah.
And I want, and how do I sort of how do I demonstrate to them that atheism or secular humanism or free thinking or whatever variety you want to call yourself, that this doesn't define me as much as the kind of world I want to build and the kind of relationships I want to build and the kind of contribution I want to make and the way I want to make the most of this life. That's what I want to define me as, this positive way of life that I'm living. And so when I'm sitting there with you, because I had to come out to my ultra evangelical Christian parents. My dad is a big wheel in the evangelical community. And so, I was right there with you, man.
Yeah.
So I went through that, and now I counsel a lot of people who are exactly where you are. And so, like, yeah, I felt like I felt like I felt really privileged to kind of, and lucky to be there at the moment where you were in that moment, because I was like, that's a moment I recognize.
Yeah. It was, and I felt that too. And this was also why you were especially a figure I looked up to before, because it was like, oh, this is a guy who has to know exactly what I'm talking about, probably even more better than I do in a lot of ways. And I even, like, there was another girl that was with us there, a friend of ours whose parents came to that conference as well, and they were so skeptical. Do you remember this? So they came to the conference, and they came from a super conservative evangelical background. And they were skeptical of this whole thing, and they didn't trust her going alone, so they went with them. And I remember you having a conversation with this girl's parents about, like, what's going on with her and what this is like. And it's like, I envied that. I was like, whoa, you're having these conversations with people, you're doing the thing. How do you convince people that we want to be good just as much as anybody else? But what does goodness even mean when you come to this place? I think that's what's hard for people to understand. You were kind of talking about this a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that, in every kind of movement, in any kind of protest movement or any kind of movement for equal rights, there's kind of there's a tension between those that want to reform the system and create space within the system for themselves, and those who want to burn the system down, and destroy it altogether and start over again. And, in the civil rights movement, you had Martin Luther King saying, "I dream of the day when little black boys and girls can hold hands with little white boys and girls and call each other brothers and sisters." And then you had Malcolm X saying, "Separation, man. I want nothing to do with these people. That's too much to ask that I embrace and forgive my oppressor." And I think that, same thing in LGBTQ kind of deal. You had one set of people who are like, we reject all these establishment values and we're acting out and acting up. And, and then you had other people that are saying, no. We want to be accepted. We want to embrace your institutions. We want to get married just like you. Marriage equality, and I think that it's not so much an either or as it is a both and. You need people that are standing up and saying, we demand our rights. And you also need people that are saying, we want to earn your respect. We want to be accepted. We want you to see that while we don't share your worldview, we do share your values. And I think that, that tension is always there. And so when my relationship with the Christian community, for instance, which I came out of, I still get invited to speak in churches. I mean, as a secular humanist, they're like, hey, will you come here? Like, a lot of our kids are secular and we don't know how to talk to them. Will you talk to us about what's going on with our kids? Can we ask you questions? Can you be our like friendly, nice secular humanist that we can really talk to? And the reason they invite me and not like Matt Dillahunty, my buddy, is because Matt's gonna tell them 87 ways they're idiots.
This is so funny because we just had Matt on last week.
Okay, so I was just with Matt.
Contrast. No, it's great because I'm friends with Matt too. I love Matt. Like, right. I hang out with him. He's here all the time.
Bald guys,
yeah,
right?
I know. It's so funny. Two different bald guys with two different ways of doing stuff. I like it.
And I really love Matt, and I really appreciate his work.
Yeah.
But the thing is that what he's going to do is he's going to debate those guys and show them why they're wrong. And I'm going to talk with those people and try to show them that I'm in the same camp. Like, they want to build a community of people that love each other and make the world a better place on the basis of their narrative. And what I want to say is like, hey, got a very different narrative, but I kind of want to build the same kind of community of people that love each other and that challenge young people to do things that are meaningful with their lives and that make the world better, not just for us, but for everybody. Like, we're committed to everybody. We're committed to the species. And so in a real sense, it's not an either or, it's a good cop, bad cop, where you need somebody like you need some of those fiery, kind of militant, angry atheists, because there are rights that have to be protected and there are laws that need to be changed. And like, I'm very grateful. It's because of people like that I have so much room to operate, right?
Yeah. No.
But at some point we got to get past that. At some point the question is, okay, so we don't believe in God. Now what?
Right. This is hitting a lot of key notes for me of why. Oh man, you see, Bart, you're bringing out the personal stuff in me now.
Yeah, go for it. Tell me, what do you feel, man? What's going on with you?
What I feel is, what I wanted to do with Truth Wanted was, I didn't feel like there was a place where, because I love Matt. And I think people characterize him as an aggressive guy. And I think that's true to an extent. If you know him and you're friends with him, the relationship's a little bit different. A lot of people see him on the internet and stuff, and you get certain ideas of people. And I think you'd agree with this too, that, once you know a person, it's a little different from their online personality. But I think Matt would agree with me too. It's like, I wouldn't introduce Matt to my grandmother if we're going to talk about Christianity. You know what I mean? It's like, and that doesn't mean that I don't think anything Matt says or does is particularly wrong. I don't think that, I agree with him most of the time on everything, but I think there is kind of we do talk about this idea of approach and how we handle that here on the show a lot. Like, this is a lot of what the core of this show is. And I think my personal philosophy kind of intertwines with yours as well, which is like, okay, we need to deal with the now what situation first, because more often than not, when people are having these conversations, this happens with people in crisis. This is like, oh, suddenly I've lost everything. Suddenly I'm trying to work things out, and there's other people in my life who don't understand the journey that I'm personally going through, and I'm trying to help other people, give them the tools and and the
And
words
you're
and the
caught
understanding.
between two things, because on the one hand, you don't necessarily have the tools all by yourself to figure out how to make sense of life without that framework that Christianity provided. Because Christianity didn't just tell me like what I believed about God. It told me like what kind of food to eat, told me what kind of jobs I could have, what kind of women I could date, what kind, like, it, you know, it's a whole framing narrative that answers every question on some level. And so, you know, so some people like have an easier time than others creating a new narrative and a new framework of meaning. And part of the reason I want to build communities is because what communities often do is they help people that aren't naturally good at creating a whole framework. They sort of help them along. You know, some as the leaders create a framework that works for the followers. You know, and every movement has leaders and followers. And the fact that you're not good at framing a new narrative or figuring out the answers to all those questions doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you're not valuable. It just means that, like, in the orchestra, that's not the instrument you play.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to have a trumpeter, but you also got to have a drum player. And in a community, you got to have people that are able to answer some of those bigger picture questions and sort of help you to frame a narrative and to say, because the world works this way, we should act this way. You know, because this is the one and only life that we have, we should make the most of it. And the more we think about what makes the most of it, you know, it might have to do with loving relationships and contributing to the work of other people and developing a sense of gratitude and wonder for the privilege of human consciousness. Like, there's a lot of stuff to work out. And some people are great at working that out and framing it. And other people are great at feeding the homeless. And so if you give them a narrative that helps them understand why feeding the homeless is really important, they'll feed like hell. They'll really do it great.
Yeah.
And so I think that part of it is that some people struggle to come up with a framework of meaning. But the other thing is, while they're in the middle of that struggle, they're fighting a two-front war, because they're trying to figure out their own life, and they're trying to fight off their family who are telling them that they're going to burn in hell, and like that you don't love me anymore and you've rejected me and I don't know how to talk to you. And so that's the other place where a lot of times people need help is, can you help me navigate these relationships, especially in the middle of the transition? Because, you know, my relationship with my parents now, they know who I am. They know where I'm coming from. There's a, you know, like we're past that big transition that you were in last year. But that transition for a lot of people, that lasts for years.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one to navigate. And so that's another place where people sometimes need some fellowship, and they need some pastoral care, and they need some counseling to help me figure out, how do I relate to these people?
Yeah. How do you build community in areas? Because, like, I'm lucky because I live close enough to Austin where I can be a part of the Atheist Community of Austin and do stuff here with the show and volunteer and do all these other things and work with a great group. But if I'm in the middle of Kentucky or, you know, somewhere way out there, and it's like those are the people that don't have as ease of access. I remember originally coming out and looking in the area where I was at, there was only one group in my whole area. There was a secular student alliance, and I figured that out later. But besides that, there was just one group, and it was a Universalist church that was in town. And I went there a few weeks, and you know what, Bart? They're great people. They're super nice. All of them were over the age of 40. I can't relate to these people and their experiences. You know, it was just completely outside of my range. And
so, you know, it's funny. I was just at an event, speaking at an event in Nashville called the NanoCon. It was the Nashville nuns put on this conference. And boy, you go to a conference like that in the Deep South, and it is a lot of people coming from a lot of isolation. And the talk I gave, the workshop I ran, was called How to Find Your Tribe. And it had in parentheses, how to find, and then parentheses, or build your tribe. Because for a lot of people, there isn't a group you can just step into. You've got to find those people. And the problem is that some of the people that need a tribe aren't natural tribe builders.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, that's and that may not be the conversation that that your listeners are interested in right now, but like,
I think it's exactly what people need to hear. I don't know. I love it.
Well, you know, what's interesting is that like the first thing I ended up saying to them is that, you know, gosh, I think I even, yeah, it's funny. I even wrote it down. I have these notes from the talk. And the first thing I said is that you have to own and articulate your need / desire / determination to find a tribe and to be a part of a tribe. That in a sense, sometimes people are sort of like, it's sort of like with, they hope it happens, but they don't articulate it. They don't say, it's like if you were looking for a girlfriend or partner, it would be very important for you to just say like, hey, you know, you say to your friends and your family, to, you know, to sort of put on your profile, like, I'd like to be married someday. I really hope I find, you know, if you know anybody that you think I should meet, I'd be interested to be introduced to them. That like, you have to present yourself as a person who would like this to happen. And so a lot of times people act like they could take or leave community. And I always say like, you're not going to find community unless you make it clear to people, like, I'm on a quest. And so, you know, in our Christian days, we would pray for things. And the act of praying for them was a way of articulating, oh, Lord, I hope I find community. And what it did was, you know, God doesn't do anything. There is no God. But prayer actually does change things, because prayer fixes the thing you're looking for in your mind. And it also broadcasts to everybody else that you're looking for it. And so it's a little bit like, I don't know if you've ever like owned a car, like a Volkswagen, and all of a sudden you buy a Volkswagen, you see Volkswagens are everywhere. You know, when your wife is pregnant women are everywhere, and they were always everywhere. You just didn't notice them. But when you are clear about what you're looking for, and you're articulate about what you're looking for, you find it and it finds you. And so that, you know, that was one of the things. And then I talked about like, listen, you gotta, once you also have to clarify your vision and be able to talk about the kind of community that you're looking for. Cause like for you went to that Unitarian Universalist thing and you go like, yeah, it's a community, but it's not me. It's a little touch, you know, it's a little bit like all narratives are welcome here and they got a lot of woo woo going on and they're all older. And you're like, so you got to be able to, so you in a sense have to be able to really envision what you're looking for, even if it doesn't exist. And I always say to people, talk about it with your Christian friends and family. Tell them what you're looking for. Because what often happens is that number one is that it tells them, by telling them what you desire, it's telling them what you value. And that helps them to understand you. That lets them know, like, I'm not looking to be part of a burn it down atheist, you know, angry atheist club. I'm looking for what you have. I'm looking for somebody who, when I get cancer, will bring me a casserole. I'm looking for somebody who, you know, who wants to help me raise my kids. I'm looking for somebody with whom I can talk about the deeper issues of life and try to, somebody's going to challenge me to be my best self. And they go, oh, I recognize that. But the other thing, Dan, is a lot of times you tell people about that and they go like, well, you know what? I mean, I'm a Presbyterian. You're not going to find what you're looking for in my church. But like, I have a cousin and he's an atheist too. And he's really nice like you. You guys should meet each other. And so a lot of times what you'll find is that if you can articulate what you're looking for, you're going to get help and you're going to get connections from the most unlikely people, because they'll go like, listen, that sounds like a good thing. You should do that.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I could talk to Bart, guys, for like 3 hours and we could find new things to say. I could keep going on this and stuff, but I mean, this is a call-in show, and I need you guys to talk to Bart, because you guys should talk to Bart. This isn't about being Bart.
I hate calling shows because I'm always scared that there's nobody going to call in, that nobody's interested.
We got 4 people on the line right now, ready to talk to you, dude. You ready?
Bless your hearts, all 4 of you.
Let's do it, man. Let's get into some calls. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, so we're going to try to get through the calls a little bit faster this time. Bart's got some things to do tonight,
shut up.
But we're going to do it. Are you ready to take some stuff, man? You ready to go?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Go for it.
I'm so hyped for this. This first one is a very special person. Those of you who are watching probably know who this is. This is Paul Gia. Paul is calling in on the line from Canada. What's up, Paul?
What's up, Dan?
Hey.
And hey, Bart.
Hey, Paul Gia.
We met in Calgary once. I don't know if you probably don't remember that, but it meant a lot to me. And I know you've been shortchanging yourself. You haven't been telling people that if they want to heal these relationships, they really need to read your book and watch your movie called Leaving My Father's Faith, which is amazing, which I recommend to everyone.
Oh, man, thank you so much for saying that. You know, I didn't make that movie. My friend John Wright made that movie, and he filmed my dad and I, and he told our story. I didn't make it, but I really like it. And I think he really captures the essence of loving somebody who you really don't agree with.
That isn't actually why I called in, but I mean, I did actually sit down with my father and watch, who's a devout Christian man who leads his church. And
That's great.
And he felt that your father expressed his heart in a way that he wasn't able to. So it was a very great moment for us. So anyway, I always recommend that movie to people. But my question is, I've been an atheist for about 4 years. And, you know, I've been kind of in that realm of defining myself as anti-God. And as you've been talking about in the show, what's next? I suspect that I might also be a secular humanist. I suspect that I might be, but I don't really, that means a lot of things to a lot of people. And I haven't really been able to pin it down such that I feel like I can give myself that label. So I'm wondering if you're someone I respect greatly and would love to hear sort of, what do you think it means to adopt that label?
Well, you know, it's a great question. And if you'd have grown up in evangelical Christianity like I did, you would know that if you say the word, what's a Christian, you talk to 100 different Christians and you get 103 answers. Right? Like, it's one of those words that means, like, to the one guy, it means like the Westboro Baptist Church, like God hates fags. And then all the way on the other end, there's like Shane Claiborne going like, let's love the poor, right? Christianity can mean a million different things. And I've come to the conclusion, I call myself a humanist because it's one of those words that has a lot of flexibility built into it. So when I went to USC as the chaplain, they had an angry atheist club. And I went and, sort of met with them as 5 kids, and they were reading Richard Dawkins books and organizing debates against Christians and, tabling and making fun of people. And I said, listen, if that's what you want to do, like that, I don't know anything about that. I'm not that interested in that. You're on your own. I said, but I know how to do this other thing. I know how to create a community based on the idea that the surest way to make the most of your life, the data-driven, surest way to do it, the people that feel the best about their lives all the way through it, and especially at the end, are those that commit themselves to building loving relationships with a handful of friends, with doing work that makes things better for other people, and with cultivating a sense of gratitude and wonder for just the amazingness of human consciousness and the natural wonders of the world. And I know how to build a community like that. So if you'd like to build a community like that, where we go out and we recruit people into that community because we think it'll make their lives better, I can show you how to do it. And students were like, oh, that sounds like so much more fun than what we were doing. Let's do that. And so we built this secular student fellowship group on the campus. And it grew to be like, involve like more than 100 students. And they would have these wonderful meetings. It's still going on there. It's one of the most popular groups on the campus, and one of the most interesting groups on the campus, and one of the most well-respected groups by the other groups on the campus, because these young people are so committed to, and like, unlike the Christian groups, which do a Bible study where they read one book and try to figure out how that applies to their lives and how that can make them better people, our kids were reading all kinds of books, but always asking the same question: how do I use this information to help me build better relationships, to help me make the world better for other people, to cultivate a sense of excitement and wonder about life? So what's interesting is if you went to USC now and you said, what's a humanist? To like your average kid on that campus, they would say, oh, a humanist. That's somebody who really wants to make the most of their life, but doesn't believe in God and has dinner every other Sunday night in the rec center. Because like that group defines humanism for that campus. And they look and they say, oh, I know what a humanist is. It's people that are like Joey and Katie and Anthony and Mariah. Like they know a group of people. And, you know, in the Christian church, we used to sing the song, they will know we are Christians by our love. Well, damn it. That's the truth of any group. They'll know you are, you know, YMCA members by your love. Like they'll know you by the way you love each other. And so in a sense, humanism gets defined by a group of people who say we're going to pursue love as a way of life in a very secular way. We're going to use data. We're going to reason. We're going to talk about things in this way. But we're not just going to use truth and reason for their own sake. We're going to use them in the service of our ultimate purpose, which is to make the most of this one life we've got. And so when I define it that way, the interesting thing is on campus, humanist evangelism was the easiest thing in the world. You walk up to a kid, he'd say, what are you about? What's humanism? I say, it means we want to pursue love as a way of life and goodness and make the world a better place. But we got no supernaturalism at all. And the kid would go, that's me. Am I a humanist? Like, oh, yeah, you're a humanist. Come join the group. You know? And so humanism for us got defined. We never call ourselves atheists because that wouldn't tell you anything about our values. It would just tell you what we didn't believe in. Humanism says, look, we don't believe in God, but that's incidental. What's really important is we're deeply committed to pursuing this way of life. And so if you don't believe in God, you don't necessarily belong in our group. But if you share these values, you definitely do.
Is that an answer to a question or what?
I talk too much. I know I talk too much, you guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
Son of a preacher man, I get it.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I guess under that definition, I can call it that. And there's no, I'm not.
Of course you are, Paul. Of course you are.
I'm not getting a backlash from the angry humanist community.
The angry humanist.
I don't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Paul. Everybody who comes out of the Christian movement has an angry atheist face because you feel like you got the wool pulled over your eyes. If you were gay, you got screwed over. You were a woman, you got screwed over. If you were just a nice guy like me, you got screwed over because like there was all this fun I could have had, all these women I could have had lovely relationships with that I didn't. I gave it all up for Jesus. And so like you're gonna be angry for a time, but there comes a time where you go like, that's a natural phase. But if you stay in that phase, you miss out on the real joy of liberation. Because the real joy of liberation is not to stand outside the prison walls and go like, fuck you, I'm free now. The real joy is to turn away and walk away from the prison and go experience the wonders of life.
Awesome.
Man.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. Oh, I can't.
Dan,
This is the part where I give commentary. I can't. It's just great. I love it. I don't even want to question
Dan,
that.
I'll talk to you next week, so I didn't need to hear from you today anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
That's right.
Paul.
That's right. Yeah.
Paul, do you listen to the Humanize Me show?
Sometimes I get your email blasts about it, and I listen to it when I can.
You know, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying, like, that's the conversation. Like there are a lot of podcasts about that phase where you're angry, or that phase where you have to convince yourself that Christianity really doesn't make any sense. The Humanize Me podcast, if it's about anything, it's about getting on with it and figuring out how to enjoy the wonders of life.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, I'm so thankful that you're out there doing it, and congrats, Dan, on getting an awesome guest.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. And Paul, I will see Paula Gia next week at Faithless Forum. Those of you who are going to that in Dallas, Texas, we're going to be hanging out, having a good time. If you haven't got your tickets, it's already sold out. I can't help you there. But catch us next year, or we're probably all going to upload videos of it on our channels. So you'll get to watch it vicariously and stuff. But thanks for calling, Paul. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks. Great to talk to you both. Thanks.
All right. See you later.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Like, that was a thing for me in the sense of like I was on Reddit every day checking r/atheism. You know, I was watching every single YouTube video out there. I was like aggressively having more conversations with the topic with people that I felt comfortable having the conversations with. That's definitely not everybody. And it was just like, why? I just felt like, why aren't people talking about this more? Why does this not mean as much to other people as it does to me? And then I got to the point kind of where you're talking about where it's like, well, I kind of have to live with this now. This is kind of my reality. So you kind of get used to it a little bit. That doesn't mean you don't speak out when you need to speak out, or that, you know, you let things that are unjust go unspoken, right? Like, it just means handling the conversations in a different way, kind of improving your ethic in a way. So yeah, I have to agree. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. And like using the label of secular humanist is a label that I feel comfortable with using, you know, describing how I do things, especially here on the show. So
Yeah. No, I'm glad.
it's good stuff.
So who you got? You got anybody else?
Heck yeah, I got more people. I want to go to Elena in New York. Elena, what's going on?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm going fantastic. I have here that you wanted to talk to us about religious family dynamics.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of my family is still very Christian.
Mm-hmm. And how's that going?
Definitely. It's kind of awkward. We have a lot of arguments. I mean, we still love each other and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We had a pretty bad argument today.
Tell me about that.
It can be kind of frustrating because they kind of look at you differently.
Mm-hmm.
Alana, I'm curious as I'm listening to you. How old are you?
Oh, sorry. I'm 15.
Okay. So you're still in the house?
Yes, very much still in the house.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because that's a dynamic all by itself, because, you know, like you're kind of not economically independent. You're kind of under the thumb a little bit. And that puts you it's very difficult, isn't it, to kind of be in a Christian household where kind of the whole rules are defined by Christianity. And you're like, I'm not sure I buy this. I don't think I do.
A Christian household as an atheist and gay, so
Yeah.
that's always fun.
Tough, isn't it?
It's kind of interesting. I mean, at first it was kind of normal, and then after a while, it kind of changes.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamic kind of
Go on, Bart.
shifted. What were you trying to say?
Well, Alana, I guess, and I'm wondering, is there a specific issue or question that you've got, or you're just sort of like, help? Where do I start?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly great at arguing. I kind of have some issues with anxiety, so.
Mm-hmm. I say,
I feel like my heart's about to fall out of my chest.
yeah. I say, if you're not great at arguing, that might be a good thing. You know, maybe this isn't a great time to argue with people. But I'm sure Bart has a lot. Yeah.
Alana, there's one thing that being secular and being gay in a family like yours has in common. And that is that a lot of times the people in your family will think that you're making a choice when in fact there's no choice. People don't choose their sexual orientation, and people don't choose what they believe. Like, you know, and so I think one of the important things when you get into an argument, there's a sort of an understanding of like, look, you've decided to take this position and I've decided to take this position. And I'm going to try to convince you to make a different decision. And I think it's very important when you're in these conversations to stop a person right at the beginning and say, listen, I want to get things clear here. It's not that I won't, or that I reject God, or that I hate God. I can't believe in God. I'm unable to do so. And sometimes I'll say to my Christian friend, I say, if I put a gun to your head right now and said, I'm going to kill you, and after I kill you, I'm going to kill your whole family if you don't accept Islam as the truth. I'm going to put you on a lie detector test. And the question is, can you reliably promise me that you believe in Islam? I say, could you do it? And they always say, oh no, I could never deny Jesus. Even if I wanted to, even if I was motivated, I don't believe in Islam. That doesn't seem true to me. Christianity is what I believe is the truth. And I said, that's right. You couldn't if you wanted to. And I said, that's what you need to understand about Alana or Dan or me.
Yeah.
Is that even if we wanted to, I mean, believe me, Alana, my life would have been a lot easier if I could have believed in Jesus, and so would yours. But even if we wanted to, we're not able to. It's not a choice for us. And so I think that sometimes that changes the conversation a little bit, because then you're able to sort of say to the person, what I'm wondering, Mom, is what do you think Jesus would want a person like me to do? What do you think Jesus would want a person like me who can't believe in God to do? And so I think it's important to sort of set it up as a can't, not a won't, because if it's a won't, then it means you don't like them. You reject them. You think what they are is evil or wrong, and that hurts them. They feel rejected by you. I think it's important to put it in that other category. The other thing that's really important is to be able to speak Christian well enough to say to your family, you know, the Bible teaches that we're saved by grace through faith. And this, not of yourselves, says the Apostle Paul, faith is the gift of God. And so if you really want me to come back to the faith, the person you should be talking to isn't me. You should be talking to God and asking him to give me the ability to believe in him. You should be praying for me, but you shouldn't be arguing with me, because I can't believe in God unless God gives me the ability to do so. It's out of my hands.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. And this is interesting too, because this kind of contrasts with the narrative that we're sometimes taught in Christianity, at least what I was taught, was this idea was, oh, we have free will to choose whether to follow Jesus Christ or not. It's always a choice. You don't have to. You could go have those relationships with those women like you were talking about. You can go gamble and drink and do these things, but you have to make the choice to follow Jesus or whatever kind of, faith that might ascribe to, when it doesn't actually seem like that's the case, at least for a lot of us. It seems like, at least I know for myself, this was a conclusion that I had to come to on my own. Yeah. And in order for me to believe again, I have to follow that same methodology that I did before, follow that same process of looking at evidence, seeing if things are true or not, seeing, what limited powers I have as a human being to decipher my reality and see if the kind of God concepts are matching up with that kind of picture of reality. Yeah.
One more thing, Alana. Mm-hmm. One more thing I would say to you is that I don't know if you found any support, any mentors, maybe in the LGBTQ community, but I want to really encourage you, just as I was talking with Dan earlier about articulating, being able to know in your heart, like, I want to find some people to support me. I want to find an older woman who can mentor me. I'm looking for role models. I'm looking for people who can show me how to navigate the world as a secular gay woman. I think you need to be on the lookout for that. Because nobody can figure out this life all by themselves. And especially with somebody like you who's got, I would say, in diving, we would say you're doing a dive with a high degree of difficulty. And I just really want to encourage you, rather than trying to figure everything out by yourself, to go like, the first thing I'm going to figure out is how to find some people to help me figure things out. And calling into a show like this is great. But one of the things I would say is like, hey, when you hear somebody like me or like Dan on the show, write them an email and say, hey, here's my story. Do you know anybody I should talk to? Do you know anything I should read? Can you steer me a little bit? Can you show, do you know a woman who would be, because I know a woman who would be fabulous for you to talk to, and I'm not going to tell you who she is. But I am going to tell you that if you send me an email and remind me of this conversation, I'm going to hook you up with a really fabulous woman who would be willing to talk with you and correspond with you and support you in your life. And that's what you're going to need to do, is you're going to need to hustle to get the support that you need at this moment in your life. Are you hearing me on this?
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Good. Because I'm dead serious. This isn't like just to like, as an example, Alana, you could send me an email. It's like, I'm telling you, you send me an email, I'm going to hook you up with a really good woman.
You want to give that email real quick while Alana's still on the line? We're going to plug stuff at the show too at the very end. So
no, the easiest way to find me is you just go to bartcampolo.org, my website, and there's a place there where it says contact. And honestly, if you hit that, there's no office, there's no assistant. It just goes right to my email, which is bartcampolo@gmail.com.
Yeah. And I want to add too, if you want to contact me, I have an email address as well. It's truth@atheist-community.org. And we have a Discord where the ACA and all the other shows, they kind of combined into one Discord. If you look up the Atheist Community of Austin Discord, you'll find it. You can talk to people, like, as long as somebody's online, there's somebody to talk to on there as well. And we've got people all around the world who are willing to talk to other people about where they're at in life and stuff. Of course, there's all kinds of resources.
And that's true. I got to tell you though, if you're 16 years old, one of the things I'm just a little word to the wise, Alana, is listen to people on these podcasts, listen to people that you hear interviewed. And when you find somebody who sounds trustworthy to you, then get the hookups through them rather than going straight into these chat rooms or these discussion boards, because sometimes you're going to find people that are going to give you crazy ass advice.
That's true too. Yeah.
And they mean well. And so there's a sense in which you need to make sure you go like, hey, that person's vibe, that person's, I've listened to, like, I think about Anthony Magnabosco, who's Dan's friend. Mm-hmm. And I listened to him over the course of a variety of things. And finally I was like, you know what? This guy, he's consistently making sense to me. I'm going to reach out to him. He sounds like a trustworthy person, and he proved to be just that. And so you got to be careful. You got to be careful out there, because there are a lot of people full of a lot of shit.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah, I know some people like that.
Yeah, we all do.
It's the internet. You know, there's always going to be people out there like that.
I spend too much time on the internet. I know plenty of people like that.
Don't we all? I definitely do. Yeah. Well, Alana, I hope this was a helpful call. I hope you got something out of this.
It was very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Right, okay.
You have a great day.
We'll talk to you later. All right.
Yeah. Bart, let me tell you something, Bart. I'm a lucky man in a lot of ways, because the first time when I was first having doubts, one of the first people I got to talk to was Anthony Magnabosco. And then when I was really struggling, I got to talk to you. And not a lot of people can say that. That just happened by circumstance. I wasn't like, you didn't know who I was. I didn't know who Anthony was. And it just kind of happened in life. One might say that God might have designed a plan for me to meet certain people in my life, but that's not really the narrative I prescribe under these days.
No, but you know what, Dan? I will tell you this, is that it isn't accidental, in the sense that you were real clear on what kind of person you wanted to be. And when you saw people that you felt like had something to offer you, you didn't hesitate to go and ask for their help. And sometimes people see somebody like Matt Hunte, who seems a little unapproachable. And yet when I emailed him and asked him if he would help answer a question for me, he was like, oh, sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and so not everybody's going to be responsive, but like part of the reason that you're connected to good people is that you were clear on what you're trying to do in your life. And then you asked. And I think a lot of people are hesitant to ask. And what they don't realize is that while the number of atheists in the world is gigantic, the number of people that are dead serious about pursuing love and goodness as a way of life, it's much smaller. And you know what? If somebody is committed to that lifestyle and you show up and you look like an eager beaver, they're going to want to help you, because like there's nothing more exciting than helping another person grow and have a better life.
Yeah.
You just feel awesome. I mean, our brains are literally hardwired. All sorts of endorphins drop when we're able to be helpful to another member of the tribe. And so you're smart because you ask, because when you ask, you're giving another person a chance to feel awesome about themselves.
It's true. I mean, I have a call-in show every week, right? Like, I love helping people with this stuff. If it's not me, it's my guest host, because Lord knows I only know so much. But yeah.
I don't know if the Lord knows that, but I know it.
Well, that's true. There it is, man. There it is.
It's all there. That language is just
the language is still it's coming out because I'm talking to you, Bart.
You know the thing is, I embrace a lot of that language. Like I got no problem like you say, are you a minister? Of course I'm a minister. I try to directly address the needs of people who are struggling. You go like, are you building a fellowship? Yeah, of course. There's a bunch of people that share the same value system, and like yeah, of course. Like Don't let the Christians hold on to all the good words.
Right. It's like a code switching thing almost. Yeah, I use that more with other Christians than I do with other kinds of people.
And to speak to Alana, like one of the things that makes me effective at talking with Christians is that I speak their language.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way about myself. I hope I come across that way to other Christians when I talk to them, but we'll see. We still got two more calls on the line. You ready to talk? This is interesting. This is Charles in Fort Worth. Charles, are you there?
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
How is it going, Charles?
Do you remember me? I called you back a while back when we had like that pagan show. It was like all the pagans called in.
Yes, I have. This is the most interesting description ever. I'm going to go ahead and read what the call screener typed here. They said, discovered the goddess of the United States called Columbia and has to do more research to find out if she's real.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that. What is that?
Man, this is like, I just figured this out recently. Have you ever heard of a poet named Phyllis Whitney?
Phyllis Whitney. I'm not sure if I have. Have you, Bart?
No.
Okay, let's start with her first. She was a black slave during the Revolutionary War, and she wrote, and her slave owners taught her ancient Latin, Greek, and pretty much that all that ancient pagan language and writing. Mm-hmm. And she was a slave. And what she did is she wrote poetry during the Revolutionary War about a goddess named Columbia, and it inspired the Revolutionary War to keep on fighting. And she became the symbolization of what was to be America. Isn't that pretty awesome? And liberty.
Huh. Okay. So this poet
she was a poet. She was a poet who, in a sense, anthropomorphized her dream of a great country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
And when we won our independence and during the Revolutionary War, George Washington invited her as a slave to the Capitol and granted her independence because her poetry and the goddess Columbia inspired him so much to keep on fighting.
So
all right, tell me her name again so that we can all Google this and learn more. What's her name?
Goddess Columbia is what it is.
It's called Columbia is called the goddess of the United States, Columbia.
Who's the poet?
And the poet was Phyllis Whitney.
Phyllis Whitney.
I got you. Phillis, and her last name is Wheatley.
Okay, so Charles, I gotta ask you: is your belief right now that Columbia actually exists as a deity somewhere, and we're not just talking about metaphors?
No.
I would have to read more on. But due to her poetry, a lot, if you really look at it, like in Washington and stuff, a lot of the buildings, like even the United States Capitol, she's on the very top, the goddess Columbia. And a lot of the other buildings in Washington have that Greek structure about them. And that's on purpose. Because
Charles, is there a question in here somewhere?
No, I just wanted to enlighten y'all with this information I learned. I mean, because I think it's a fascinating story.
Well, I want to, because so like you're agnostic on the subject as to whether or not Columbia actually exists as.
Yeah, I am pagan, but I do not know if Columbia is a real deity, a real goddess. But I find that this goddess in this poetry liberating a people to fight for the country that became the United States is awesome.
So, Charles, can I ask you what's the method you would use to discover whether or not this goddess was real?
I would just have to do more research.
What does that mean? Like, what does research look like? Like, do you look at a book and the book says that this goddess is real, or like, how does that work?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, and if they are pagans that worship the goddess Columbia, are they really patriotic pagans then? Because like we call like a normal American that believes in the Constitution and what America stands for is a patriot. They believe in the country. They believe in everything we stand for. And I can understand that because I'm straight up, even though I'm a pagan, I'm straight up patriot. I straight up believe in the Constitution and everything that we believe in.
Well, okay, so this is it. We have a few other callers, and I don't know if this is really Bart's forte. No, Charles.
What about the information and just look more into it yourself too?
I'm saying it's fantastic that you're calling about this, but I want to know maybe next time when you call in, and not next week because next week we're not going to be doing a live show here. We're going to be pulling up one of the older episodes because I'll be at Faithless Forum. But Charles, I'm curious if you can do some research and then maybe call in again and then talk about what your method was and how you figured out that Columbia was a real goddess. If you came to that conclusion.
What gets me though is like how people they worship like Freya and Isis and all these other female goddesses. I mean, you don't really hear about Columbia, and what they say in history is she was replaced by Uncle Sam, and that's why you don't hear about her no more. And then that's where it gets really interesting, where it's kind of like she got replaced by Uncle Sam.
Yeah, I definitely want to have a conversation with you sometime about what methods you're using and how you're figuring out whether or not this goddess is real, like what that whole research process looks like. But unfortunately, we are on a limited time episode today. But Charles, I do encourage you to call back again and then email me too if you want, or talk to the people on the Discord, because like this is the kind of stuff I love talking about on Truth Wanted, how people come to these different kinds of conclusions. Does that sound good to you, Charles?
Most definitely. You said not next week, but the week after?
Not next week, because next week I'm going to be at Faithless Forum, but the week after that, for sure.
Oh, okay. That gives me plenty of time to do some more research because I wanted to learn more about the poet too. Because there's just so much going on there that's interesting.
There is a lot going on, and I'd be curious to hear about it. But we're going to go on to some other callers. Thank you so much, Charles, for calling in, and I'm looking forward to hearing you call back.
All right, I appreciate y'all.
Yeah. What'd you think of that, Bart? You talk to a lot of pagans. We get some pagan callers on here sometimes.
You know, I only very occasionally. You know, it's interesting. There's a wonderful woman who I met a few years ago in San Antonio. She runs a thing called the Star, which is a kind of a community there of secular folks. And they run a humanist service on Sunday mornings out at the Lackland Air Force Base. And it's the most popular service on the base. She has 1,500 cadets who show up every Sunday to kind of talk humanism with her. and they do just a great job. And she makes it so that she makes the invitation. It's just the funnest service of them all. And so some of the Christian kids come, some of the pagans come, people, and she, at the beginning, she has people, she has as many different people as, she'll say, how many Christians are here? And they all cheer. How many humanists are here? And then she goes, how many pagans are here? And there'll be like 5 of them and 3 of them. And she covers the whole map. And so that's the place where I think I've encountered the most pagans of my life. It's just at this service where she kind of calls them out. And it's a beautiful thing, man, to watch people who are trying to figure out how to make sense of this life. And they're coming at it from so many different angles. And I think that, my job one of the things I initially took with me when I left Christianity was, in Christianity, I was convinced there was one true way to be a good person. And when I first left and became a humanist, I was trying to figure out the one true way to be a secular good person. And it took me a while to realize, I'm still a fundamentalist. And it took me a long time to figure out, what? There are a lot of different ways to make the most of this life. There are a lot of different ways to pursue meaning and value. And my job isn't to convince everybody that mine is the way. My job is to try to, to aim to convince the people that are convincible, or maybe even just to look for people whose way isn't working out for them and say, well, if your way isn't working out for you, you might want to try this way. But sometimes I meet people who are thriving in hardcore religion, but it's making them more loving and more kind, and it's creating form. And I'm not as prone as some people are to talk them out of it, because I'm not so sure that they'll be able to find the same level of support and community on the outside. Until we build some really wonderful humanist communities, I'm not sure it's a better deal for everybody, especially if you're somebody who really needs to be told what to do.
Yeah, man, that's so true, because my first few months of coming out and figuring out were awful, because all of my friends that I could talk about this were pretty much online, which is great. I'm glad I had them, but it's this. It's different talking to somebody online than it is having a conversation.
It's hard out there.
And some of you guys have watched the show, know that I had Ocean on, who is a pagan, and we talked about this kind of stuff. And I am happy. I'm so happy I get to be friends with Ocean. Because we end up agreeing on more things than we disagree on. And I don't have to have the same beliefs as him in order to live a good life. And that's why Ocean is also coming to Faithless Forum next week, which is cool, because it is an atheist conference and he's hanging out just because he's part of the community, man. He's a staple figure. So yeah, I enjoy having the discussions of how people think something is true, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose my mind over it. I think there are some people who do a purist.
And it wears me out. But on some level, I'm like, go be well, be happy.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of people here. We're trying to figure out how to build a good life based on a common understanding of the world. And that's hard enough. So y'all go do you.
That's true. Well, we got some more calls here that I want to get through, kind of more rapid fire.
Right. Let's go. I'll try to go really fast.
Let's go through this. Josh. Bart, this is Josh, who I'm about to put on right now, who's calling from Cincinnati. I think he just saw you talk at American Atheist. Is that true, Josh?
Come on, baby.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. What's up, Josh?
Oh, man. I am... It's been a rough week. I got tickets to the awards dinner back in January. Few things warrant me pausing a Seth Andrews podcast. But as soon as I heard him talk about that, I went straight on, got one of the free tickets, just super stoked about it. Man, Atheist convention in Cincinnati, my hometown, and I work 60 hours a week, so I don't have time for any of this shit. So, insert there is a God pun here, of course.
Right.
And I was super excited about it for months, and the only issue is my wife. She's a fundamentalist Christian, Pentecostal, to be exact. And, I love her no less for it. I didn't marry her extremely Christian. I've been an atheist since I was a teenager, since I was able to go, doesn't make any fucking sense. But she blew up about it. And I had to, choose family first, because, it's about respect. I'm not gonna, I was super excited to go to this convention, and all I really wanted to do is just shake the hands of like Matt, Jamie, Eric, Seth Andrews, and everybody that's helped me just get through everything. I attend a Pentecostal service once a week, and it's somewhere in between brutal and entertaining. It's just I lean on the ACA, and you guys have been a great help. Everybody that does everything there, just hats off to you. And you, my man, seem like you were on the same page that I am, just with just humanism, just treating people with respect, and just not looking at people for their beliefs, and just seeing people for people. And that seems to be where it's at. And it's just been a troubling week, and it just seemed like you were the guy to talk to, and this was a great opportunity. I've listened to Truth Wanted since its premiere, and I've been following the ACA for years now, and it just seemed like the right time to call in, man, especially where you're exactly where I want to fucking be sitting right now. Shake some hands for me, man, and keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate what everybody's doing here.
Oh, man, Josh, that is so wonderful to hear. I wish I got to go to American Atheist this weekend with Eric and Jamie and Matt and those guys. But I'm here doing the show, and that's cool too. And one day, Josh, I'm going to shake your hand. We're going to make that happen.
Hey, don't feel too bad, man. I'm 10 miles from that fucking convention right now, and I can't go. So
yeah, I get that, man. But Bart, do you have anything to say about this situation? I'm sure this has come up a lot in the conversations you've had with people.
It's interesting. I just was talking to a sex therapist named Marty Klein, who is kind of this world-renowned sex therapist. We just did a podcast with him. And we were talking about pornography and the way in which pornography, he wrote a book called His Porn, Her Pain. And it's all about kind of marriages that are oftentimes, where the woman is like very upset and horrified by her husband's use of pornography. He doesn't necessarily get it. But one of the things that Marty pointed out to me is that the larger problem isn't the porn usually. It's the lack of communication and the ability of one spouse to dictate to the other spouse and say, you will not watch this, or you will not look at this. Like, I'm laying down the law here. If you want to be with me, this is my way or the highway. And what Marty said is that's the destructive thing. And so what concerns me about your story is not that your wife disagrees with you, but that she feels like she has the right to dictate to you and say, like, you can't go there. I don't want you to be with people that agree with you. Imagine if you turned it around and said, you can't go to that Pentecostal church. I forbid it. That would be so wrong of you. Like, that's not the way people in a partnership deal with their differences. And so, I think that probably the thing I would argue with my wife about if I was you is I wouldn't go to her and say, that's not fair that you dictated that. I would say, like, hey, listen, I want to talk to you about like what kind of marriage we want to have moving forward. We're coming from different places, but like, can we come up with a way in which we respect each other? Can we come up with a new way of communicating? Is there a way that I can put something on the table and you can ask questions about it? Like, I want to get to the place where I don't feel like I should dictate to you what should happen, and you don't feel like you should dictate to me, because I feel like if we start laying down rules for each other, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So I think
situation where she's quite dictating what I'm allowed to do or not. Just being a woman, she's much better at being an argumentalist than I am. She's not so much you're not allowed to go to that, but why do you need to go to that? And I explained the basic human nature for community and for people to be around like-minded individuals. And that I just simply want to shake the hand of people who, might I add, are helping save our marriage, because they have better helped me understand, just collaboration and just forgetting about the idealism and just looking at people for people and just seeing the human being behind all these ideals and just loving somebody for who they are. And that's
Josh,
really been
we're not
help.
there. You're there. This may not have been the moment for you to, in a sense, to sort of respectfully say, listen, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. I'm going to come home and explain it all to you, but I'm going to go. This may not have been the moment for you to in a sense.
Indeed, you got to pick your battles.
Right. This may not have been the moment, but I promise you that your marriage is going to suffer if you don't at some point say, I'm always going to be willing to listen to you. I'm always going to take your stuff seriously. I'm always going to answer your questions. But there are times when I'm going to do things that you're not going to understand or appreciate. And that because I am looking out for our marriage. And if I allow you to cause my spirit, my heart, my life, my identity to shrivel, in a sense, I'm not doing you any favors, because then you'll be married to a shriveled up raisin of a husband instead of to somebody who can really love you the way you deserve to be loved.
Yeah, which unfortunately she believes can only be achieved through the joys of Jesus Christ.
Well, Josh, listen, this isn't the time for us to do a full on, let's hear the story counsel, but I promise you, and I'm not the only one that does it. There are people that you can talk to who this is a real thing. These interfaith marriages, they are a huge thing. I counsel people, and probably one half of my whole practice as a counselor are people that are in these kinds of marriages. Because it's incredibly difficult, and it is not as so there's nothing we can say to you on a call-in show that's going to make sense of it, because each marriage is different and there's stuff. But what I will tell you is this, is that you're probably not going to figure it out until and unless you're in conversation with somebody, a friend, a buddy, a brother, a counselor, a coach. But you're going to need somebody to bounce ideas off of. It sounds funny, but being a good partner is too big a job for any one person. We all need help. We all need help in figuring out how to relate to our spouses in a way that's really good for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, man.
My wife is definitely somebody who has certainly stood her ground on her beliefs. She actually preaches as well. So, I'm not in particularly the best of spots. But, like I said, you make your bed, you lay in it. And certainly family comes first. It's all about respect. And, you got to respect family first. We have 3 children, beautiful family. And somebody's got to be there for them. And I'm not going to let anything like that come in the way when it just comes to a clash of ideas. Now it does affect the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's going to, and honestly, your kids are going to be the biggest issue. Your kids, because at some level, you're going. The question's going to be: are you going to cede the child raising to your wife? Are you going to be like, listen, those kids are yours. You teach them whatever you want to teach them. I got nothing to say about that. Or are you going to create some kind of a situation in which your kids get a chance to be raised by 2 parents who respect each other and who believe differently, and they're going to get exposure to both those opportunities and both those options, and that's a big issue to work out.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. I've learned a lot, especially through watching the, Parenting Beyond Belief show, which has also been a big help. I'm not there to, quote unquote, atheist preach to my children. They don't understand a lot of this. Their age of reason has not came yet. My oldest is 12. So they're not quite at a point where I can explain a lot of the deeper stuff that I understand and that I've gathered from these shows. All they need me to be is just there.
Yeah.
And be a good person and know that he loves mommy and know that they get along. You know, any good relationship, there's some arguments. If somebody isn't arguing, somebody is miserable. That's pretty much how I see it. No two people are going to be exactly perfect for each other. And I just need to be there, and I need to be a good example for them that, we know Daddy doesn't believe in God, but he's still a good person. And that's the only dime I need to drop in their head. Look at Seth Andrews.
Yeah.
He grew up about as fundamentalist as you can possibly get. And now he is a national freaking atheist treasure.
Yeah, it happens.
So, you know, I don't worry myself about my kids' level of indoctrination, which is quite thick. But I want to respect my wife, and I want to love my wife, and I want to love my children. The best thing that I can do is just be there. So, you know, the best thing I can do is still be here by not fucking up my marriage, by just wanting to shake somebody's hand.
Yeah.
So,
well, Josh, you know, if you made it through, I'm sure they'll make it through too, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I, that's something to think about too. I mean, we live in a world that's increasingly, I know we've debated on how exactly this process is happening, but it is a fact that at least the United States is becoming increasingly secular, and you being a role model for them is, I mean, that's as good as a role. I can't, having a father figure that is fulfilling that role of, hey, I'm a non-believer, but I'm still a good person. It doesn't get much better than that, right?
Especially when your children see that they know they don't believe in God, but he sits in a Pentecostal service every week.
For sure. For sure.
It teaches them a lot about what you should do for love anyway. So,
yeah. Well, Josh,
thanks
so much for calling.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Glad I'm always happy to talk to people who've been watching since day one. That's exciting. I'm so glad to hear that. You take care, Josh, and send an email. You know, come talk to us on the Discord. Let us know how that's going. We'll catch you later, okay?
Thanks so much, man. Yep.
Absolutely. Bart, how much more time you got here?
Got about 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes? Oh,
that's what I got.
No. We got 2 more callers here. I'm sorry, guys, who are on the line. Bart does have to go here. Thank you guys for waiting on the line. I try to get to every single call this week. Unfortunately, Bart has told me he's under a bit of a time crunch. So we're probably going to have to wrap things up right about now. But
I didn't tell you I was under a time. I am under time. I'm not making it up. I really have a thing I have to be at 9:30.
Yeah, for sure.
I would never willingly leave your side, Dan.
I get that. But hey, if you're calling in right now and you didn't get a chance to talk to Bart, I see one of them wanted to talk about the shortcomings of secular humanism and another one talking about a conversation we had last week. Guys, I'd love to talk to you guys about that stuff. I think I'm qualified enough to talk about secular humanism if Bart says I am. If I get Bart's blessing, I think that's good enough. So yeah, be sure, not next week, guys, but week after is where we're going to have a regular show. Next week, we're doing one of the old episodes. It's actually my one, a second one I did with Genetically Modified Skeptic. Back before this show was officially launched, we did a couple test episodes. We're going to play that out because I will be in Dallas next weekend during this normal time frame. So be sure to check that out. If you like my show, please subscribe, hit like, catch us on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever you want. If it's on an audio podcast website out there, our show is probably there. Also, we have a Patreon. That Patreon is patreon.com/truthwanted. That goes straight to this show and making it better and making the ACA better. I don't personally get a dime of that because this show is run by volunteers that help make this thing awesome. It's the same people that help make these other great shows here on the network, including Atheist Experience. We mentioned Parenting Beyond Belief, Talk Heathen, those guys. We're all here and we're all making good stuff. Bart, where can people find you at?
You know, I'm easy to find. The podcast is called Humanize Me, and it's wherever podcasts are. And you know, and there's humanizemepodcast.com if you want to get to the Humanize Me page. And then I'm Bart Campolo, .org. It's that simple. And yeah, the movie's on Amazon, Leaving My Father's Faith, the books are out there, but like the main, honestly, if the thing I do that is probably the most, like meaty, like if you really want to get this vibe, is the podcast. The podcast, it isn't, it's very folksy. and you meet a lot of interesting people. And yeah, and you know, the last thing I'll tell you is that we started this little humanist community in Cincinnati, and now we're starting to we're actually taking our little house church meetings, like little humanist house church kind of things, like you know, kind of like a Sunday morning experience that's emotionally resonant, that's about pursuing love in a secular way. And we're starting to put those things together and then just post them for people on the Humanize Me website. So that if somebody is trying to build a community in their own place and they don't have all those resources, they can invite 4 people over and just go through the service that we put together. So it's kind of like do it yourself.
I like
and
that.
So yeah. I think you would like it.
Yeah.
And especially for somebody who's out there in the middle of nowhere, it's a way that you can create a little bit of a kind of a regular place of input and inspiration, without having to make it all up by yourself. So yeah, so bartcampolo.org, humanizemepodcast.com. And you could just write to me. You just Google me, write to me. I love people like the kind of people that are listening to your show. And if I can ever be helpful, I always want to try.
I love the people that listen to my show too, Bart. And I forgot to mention as well, you can contact me again. That's truth@atheist-community.org. Bart, this was a fantastic episode. I'd love for you to be on again sometime if you get
all right, baby. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Anything else you want to say before we close things out?
In the words of Robert Ingersoll, my hero, the great agnostic from the 1890s, the time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. And the way to be happy is by making other people happy. So go do it.